So welcome, and thank you very much for coming to tonight's internet voting presentation. I'm Jennifer Slater, and I'm the elections coordinator and records and information specialist with the City Clerk's Office. So on behalf of the City Clerk's Office, we're very happy to see your interest in coming out tonight. We not only see it in nights like tonight when the public comes out and takes part in events like this, but also through your comments and likes and shares on social media. We've been receiving a lot of calls to our election line and our email. And also we've received an extraordinary interest this year when we had a call for election workers. We had actually over 400 people come out for election staff, which was fantastic. So we're just going to give you a brief background tonight in terms of the 2014 election, focusing particularly on internet voting, but also giving you an idea on what else is new and different ways that we're making it easier to come out and vote this year. You'll have a chance to participate in the mock online election using the fake online voter pins that we've been passing out when you came in. If you didn't get a chance to grab one on your way in, just flag us when we get started on that process and we'll make sure that you get one. So before we move forward, I wanted to take the chance to introduce and welcome Dr. Nicole Goodman, who's here with us this evening. She's the research director at the Center for E-Democracy, and she's the assistant professor at the Monk's School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto. And finally, just to keep the night moving, we are going to have a specific question and answer period following the mock election period. So if you could hold any questions you have until that time, we'll take the time to focus and address any questions then. Sure. Turn that up a bit. So I'll now turn the presentation over to Stephen O'Brien, who is the City Clerk for the City of Guelph.
2014 is a big year for Ontario municipalities. With it being an election year, the public has probably its preeminent opportunity right now to impact the decision-making process that will steer Ontario communities for the foreseeable future. Elections are an important time for all communities in Ontario, especially the University of Guelph and including the University of Guelph. Sorry, not University of Guelph, the City of Guelph, my mistake. The City of Guelph and its employees are here to serve the community, but it is community participation that ultimately drives the development and adoption of successful public policies, programs, and services. Community input is an important part of the process to ensure that these services reflect the needs and values of the community as a whole. Over the past decade, Guelph, like many other Ontario municipalities, has been experiencing a decline in voter turnout. In 2010, 34% of eligible voters participated in the election here in Guelph, and it is our hope that by introducing changes to the electoral process, we can address the reasons why people do not vote, and hopefully we can contribute to an increase in voter turnout. Over the past few months, we've been working to counter this trend by offering more information, more opportunities for dialogue, and planning for the use of alternative voting options that have been supported by Council. This work will continue through September and throughout the election period. Eligible voters will be able to cast their vote round the clock for 18 days this October. For those who prefer to vote in person, there will be a total of 6 days in which to vote. To see how convenient and accessible and easy the 2014 Guelph Municipal Election will be, we've compared the total number of days and hours that residents have cast their vote over the past 3 elections. So the chart behind me shows the increase in the number of days to vote. Consistent throughout the years, there is only one election day, which is identified by the blue bar at the top, and therefore the increases that we've made are in the advanced voting period. In 2006, we offered a total of 2 days advanced voting. In 2010, this doubled to 4 days, and we're happy to say that in 2014, the advanced in-person polls will increase to 5. But we've also added, again, online voting, which will take place over 18 days. So we've significantly increased the amount of opportunities that folks have. To put this in perspective, behind me is another slide that shows the hours. So we compared the total number of hours that residents have to vote. Again, the hours on election day remain the same. Polls are open for 10 hours on that day. However, the total hours that have increased over the advanced voting period as well. In 2006, we had 17 hours of advanced voting. In 2010, this increased to 29 hours. And this year, there will be 40 hours of in-person advanced voting, in addition to the 432 hours that are available for online voting. So the total number of hours to vote in 2014 is 442 hours. So we think that that's a strong increase, and it hopefully will make it easier and more accessible for folks to get out and vote. The biggest change to this year's election, and we've sort of highlighted it a bit thus far, and likely why you've come here tonight, is the introduction of online voting. As we're exploring options to increase voter participations, residents were asked to have their say on internet voting. And through a telephone survey that was conducted in 2013, we found that 56% of residents would vote in the municipal election if online voting was offered. Further, more Guelph electors agreed they would most likely vote by remote internet voting in the 2014 election if it were offered by the city. This 48% is compared to 40% who would most likely vote by paper ballot. Guelph isn't alone. In 2010, we know that approximately 44 municipalities used internet voting in their election events. And it is estimated that that number will increase in 2014 to between 80 and 100 municipalities. Our intent this evening is to share with you information about the voting experience in Guelph for this upcoming election, and hopefully make you as comfortable as we are with the voting options and the alternative options that we're implementing for 2014. Internet voting, I want to talk a little bit about the advantages. Internet voting, compared to vote by mail and telephone voting, which are two other common alternative voting methods, offers the greatest potential benefits and poses the least number of risks. The most common advantages to internet voting are greater accessibility to more voters, an option for some voters with disabilities to privately cast a ballot, which may not have always been possible in traditional voting places, a convenient alternative to voting proxies for students, seniors, and those who are vacationing, faster and more accurate results on voting day, and obviously a green or paperless voting option. When we talk about security, it's of utmost importance to us. So protecting the integrity of the voting process is, again, of extreme importance. We're confident that the systems and controls in place that are put in place to mitigate the risk and protect the vote are sufficient enough to allow the use of this technology for the election. We also found that Guelph residents are confident in the system. We polled last year in that same poll, 62% of Guelph electors agreed that they would feel confident casting their vote online if it was an option. We do understand that some may still be concerned that online voting is not secure and can lead to fraud. Like online banking, internet voting systems use various safeguards to secure the process. These safeguards include packet filtering, spoofing detection software, and cryptographic network protocols. Together, these methods combined work to maintain the integrity of the IP address that is being used and encrypt and authenticate the data that is being transmitted. Election fraud is always a concern for us, regardless of how the vote takes place, and we take it very seriously. The internet voting system that we'll have in place provides us a greater ability to investigate instances of voter fraud when compared to other unsupervised voting options such as vote by mail. Online voting, like in-person voting, does not reveal how anyone voted. How a person vote is split 100% from the PIN number, and we'll see how this PIN number works, this process works, but it's split 100% from the PIN number and the voter profile as soon as the ballot is cast. With respect to vote by mail systems, we cannot determine who sent the ballot in or from where, so the potential to prove voter fraud is more difficult. Also, it is important to remember that a stray voter notification card, which does contain your voter ID, does not enable a person to vote. You would also have to have access and know the information about date of birth, as well as complete the online registration process to secure an online voting PIN, which is used following the registration process. And again, we'll walk through all these aspects in the demonstration. The City of Guelph takes substantiated concerns over voter fraud very seriously, and we would report any substantiated claim to the authorities. Again, I can't stress enough that we take internet voting security extremely seriously here. We think that this system offers us a great solution. It's a two-step process, a two-stage process, and that will help us immensely in detecting any fraud that does occur. With all that being said, I'm going to again welcome Dr. Nicole Goodman to the presentation. We're very happy to have her here, and Dr. Goodman's going to expand on the history and status of online voting in Ontario.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what internet voting looks like in Canada. What does an internet voter look like? You know, who's making use of internet voting? Is it going to bring young people out to vote? Those sorts of things. So presently in Canada, can everyone hear me okay before I go? Yeah. Presently in Canada, internet voting is used in 2 provinces, Ontario and Nova Scotia. And it's used quite actively in those provinces. There has been interest in other provinces such as British Columbia and Alberta, but municipalities in those provinces have been prevented from going forward with internet voting because the provinces write and control the Municipal Elections Act for municipalities. The provinces as a whole and the federal government have all expressed an interest in internet voting, but have yet to move forward. So to date, looking at Ontario and Nova Scotia, there have been over 2 million remote internet voting opportunities. And with this forthcoming election in 2014, that will increase to approximately 4 million. So I'm just going to show you some maps of Ontario specifically to highlight for you the growth that has taken place in terms of internet voting use in this province. So this map is from 2003. In 2003, 12 municipalities and townships in Ontario used internet voting. Then in 2006, that increased to 20. In 2010, 44 made use of internet voting. And in the 2014 elections, 97 municipalities will be using internet voting in the binding municipal elections. So why internet voting? Why do municipalities or other jurisdictions adopt internet voting? This table was compiled from interviews conducted within Canada and in Europe, and you can see that the primary reasons for adoption include accessibility, providing a leadership role in e-government, increasing convenience, and of course, improving voter turnout. Now, there's no guarantee that it will do this, but overall, accessibility is the main draw to internet voting. Election officials recognize that, for quite a large segment of the population, there can be accessibility issues, and they want to make this process as accessible as possible. So are Canadians making use of internet voting? This data is from 34 of the 44 municipalities that used internet voting in 2010. The blue bar represents internet voting use, orange phone, and green paper. And you can see that overall, by far, when 2 or 3 voting methods were offered, electors in Ontario were more likely to make use of internet voting. When we look at who is actually using it, we see that the average internet voter, and this data is from the municipality of Markham, by the way, has some university education, falls into a household income bracket between $55,000 and $85,000, and is most likely middle-aged, 45 to 54 years and older. Some people say, what about young people? We thought that they would be inclined to participate if we offered online voting. The reality is that while some young people are drawn into the process as a consequence of internet voting, they just don't vote that much. So that is why older people who do vote are making more use of it. This graph is a bit more striking. The red line represents those electors in Ontario, or voters rather, aged 50 to 99, and the blue line represents voters aged 18 to 49, based on internet voting use. You can see that by far, older electors are more likely to make use of it. This says, well, it's not going to, get all the young people out to vote, but for older people, some people are concerned. They say, older people have a more challenging time with computers or the internet. It's not a deterrent for them, and they're still going to come out and make use of the service. What about turnout? This is the big question that everyone wants to know. Internet voting is not going to be a fix for declining voter turnout. It's not going to turn around apathy. Where internet voting can help is for people who are away, traveling for work, on vacation, people who have mobility issues, people who are ill, people who have a busy schedule. So there's 2 municipal examples here. In the municipality of Markham, where internet voting was only offered in the advanced portion of the poll, in 2003, when it was first offered, they saw a 300% increase. That's not a typo. In 2006, it went up an additional 43%, and there was no change in 2010. Truro is a very small municipality, 10,000 electors in Nova Scotia, predominantly an older municipality, and they introduced internet voting for the first time in 2012. They went all e-voting, completely eliminated paper ballots, and they saw a substantial increase as well. Mind you, there are other municipalities that introduced internet voting that did not see an increase. There's many factors that come into play when we're talking about turnout. Was it a competitive race? Were there important issues? all those sorts of things. One of my colleagues, Leah Stokes, and I from MIT spent the past 10 months collecting data from Ontario elections from 2000 to 2010. And we did some modeling that we presented this summer at conferences. And we found that in the 2010 elections, controlling for other factors, controlling for how competitive the election was, how many candidates ran, those sorts of things, overall, the municipalities that adopted internet voting had a 4% increase in turnout compared to those that did not. Modest increase, but still an increase. So what about non-voters? So what do I mean by a non-voter? A non-voter is someone who, when you say to them, have you voted before, they say no, but they've been eligible to do so. So what was interesting about the Markham study is that we asked people if they had been eligible to vote and if they had voted. 25% of those people who used internet voting in 2003 reported previously not voting in elections, but being eligible to do so. In 2006, that number went down to 21%, and it went down a little bit further to 9% in 2010. So this tells us that a certain portion of the electorate who typically doesn't engage in voting can be engaged. The same trend is documented in Europe in countries such as Estonia and Switzerland. Interestingly enough, the biggest margin of this group is younger people who had been eligible to vote before. This is just a graph from the Guelph survey that was carried out in 2013, asking if remote internet and telephone voting were available, would electors vote in the municipal elections? And this is just among people who identify as being non-voters. And you can see that there is pretty strong agreement that those people, they would be inclined to participate as a consequence. This graph, or chart, is from a cross-Canada panel of all ages, asking them again, would you be likely to vote if internet voting were offered? And you can see by age that the youngest age group are more likely to say, yes, we'd be inclined to participate if internet voting was offered. So what about voter feedback and acceptance? Are voters satisfied with online voting? Do they find it useful? We found, based on survey data, that for Ontario electors, internet voting is really about convenience. They're very satisfied. 99% of those surveyed in Markham reported being very satisfied with the online voting process. And that rose a little bit from previous years. We find that home is the preferred location to vote. 9 out of 10 votes are cast from home. And nearly all online voters say they would be likely to do so again in a future municipal election. What about candidates and campaigns? How does this affect candidates and campaigns? Candidates remarked from the 2010 election in Markham on 3 items. 1, they said they did notice a change in turnout. 2, that they thought that it was more accessible and convenient. And 3, that it really shortened the campaign for them. Candidates would typically go door to door and try and get out the vote. This time around, when they were doing that, they encountered many more people who had already voted because internet voting was available in the advance poll. So they had to change their game a little bit and become more active. So we find that when internet voting is offered, it changes the nature of the campaign in the sense that it becomes more top-heavy as opposed to bottom-heavy. 43% noted that they encountered 10 or more online voters, people who had already voted. They'd already missed them. So part of this research that I've been talking about is research that I helped carry out in 2010. And I'm very proud of this project that I've been working on and Guelph is participating that I'll be carrying out in the municipal elections this fall. It's called the Internet Voting Project, and it seeks to collect information from internet voters, paper ballot voters, candidates, and election administration to essentially shed light on a larger group of municipalities than just Markham. And broadly, it seeks to answer the question, what is the impact of internet voting on local elections in Canada? There's 50 municipalities of the 97 using internet voting that are going to be participating. And the website is online, www.internetvotingproject.com, if you'd like to take a look or have any more questions. And all of the findings from the study, unique findings from Guelph, and a larger report synthesizing all the findings will be made available to Guelph and on the website for you to take a look at after the election. So thank you very much. If you have any more questions about online voting in Ontario, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. It's great to know that Guelphites can trust internet voting as it's previously been tested and used across Ontario. So the internet voting option in our case for this election is going to be open from October 7th until October 24th. It's only going to be available during the advance voting period, but we've significantly extended that for the internet voting portion. So as Stephen mentioned, that's 18 full days of voting. We all live busier lives, whether it be kind of working long hours, working night shifts, picking up kids, or taking care of family. It can be very difficult to make a specific voting location on a specific day and time, and we're very aware of those challenges. Maybe even you're on vacation during election day. So as I mentioned, it's much more convenient for those who are away. So to make in-person voting even easier, in addition to internet voting, we're introducing a vote anywhere during the advanced days for advanced in-person polls. And that's going to be October 15th to October 19th. It doesn't matter which ward you live in. For that 5-day period, you can drop in and vote at any of 3 locations across the city. These locations are City Hall centrally, the Evergreen Seniors Community Center in the north end, and Stone Road Mall in the south end. All 3 of these locations meet full accessibility requirements, and they'll have a full range of accessible voting devices available for residents who prefer to use those to vote. So October 27th is Election Day in Ontario. If you haven't had the chance to come out for internet voting or to any of the advanced voting locations, this day, in-person voting is going to be your last opportunity to have input and say who's going to represent you on Guelph City Council. So there will be 35 voting locations available across the city on that day, and they'll be open from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. But to help make it easier, residents can vote anywhere within their ward on election day. So it's anywhere within the city during the advanced locations, but anywhere within your ward on the day. You can choose your closest location on your way home from work, picking up groceries or picking up the kids. It doesn't matter which ward or which location in your ward is most convenient for you. And I'll just point out afterwards, if you want to take a look at the maps, we have one here and one outside the room. These will show you if you want to take a look which ward you're in. We have noted the locations that will be available as well, so you can see which one now would be available for you here or online our website. So once voting locations are closed and the ballots are counted on election day, the results will be issued later that evening. Okay, so what is actually voting online? What's it going to look like? We're going to do a quick run through of what the full process will look like before you get started with the ones you have on your hands. So really the first thing we want to highlight is step 1. Step 1 to online voting actually doesn't even involve online voting. It's making sure you're on the voters list. Regardless of how you vote online or in person, making yourself on the list is going to make it a much more efficient and quick process to vote, but you actually have to be on the voters list in order to register and go through the online voting process. So for tonight's demonstration, we've actually started that for you. With your notice cards, that's as though you're already on the list. So step 2 is registering to vote online. Eligible voters would be able to register to vote online at the exact same time as we open up online voting, so October 7th is the start date for both. You'll need 2 pieces of ID, as Stephen mentioned earlier, to vote. It's the 2 pieces of secure information. You'll need your voter ID. You'll be getting that either on your voter notification letter in the mail, or if you add yourself to the voters list now and you provide us with your email, we'll be sending you that by email as well. The second item that you'll need is your voter PIN, and that's what you're going to be getting as part of that registration process, so it's 2-step for extra security. So for tonight's presentation, we have kind of a direct link set up here, but when you go in, you'll go to our main website link here, and there'll be an internet voting button when it's live. You'll click on the internet voting button, and it'll take you directly to the page that we're about to see. So I'll bring that up here. So this is what it's going to look like. It's going to give you the option to register and to vote. So first we're going to click register. And we're going to input the information required here. So I have myself a little test up and ready to go. I'm going to put in my ID, my first name, and my last name. So one thing to mention and make sure when you're doing for the registration is to just double check that the information you're providing here is going to be the same as what it is when you put yourself on the voters list. So if you added yourself and your name is William, for example, don't shorten it to Will or Bill when you're adding it here, because it might see it as a conflict. It might not recognize you as the same voter. So I'm going to input all of the screens. As you go through this process, you'll see have the verification text box. You'll be able to fill this out, or there's also an audio feature right here on the side to click, and it'll open up a box and read out if you have any difficulty reading what the items are. And I can note, as I've put it up there, it's actually not case sensitive. Okay, so we click through the next stage. It's going to ask you for your year of birth, and normally that's obviously not on your voter notice that you'll be getting, but we've added that in on your cards for tonight. It's going to ask you here for a secret question. You can choose whatever one is convenient for you. So I'll just type a quick letter. This question is more important for our end. If you have any difficulty when you're actually going through the registration process, you can give us a call at our election line or email us. And what we'll do is to verify that you're actually who you say you are for security purposes, we'll ask you to clarify what that question was and what your answer was. So it's going to ask you here for your email. Going to give you the opportunity to double check and make sure everything you have here is correct. Everything looks good. And it's going to confirm for you that your request has been received. So just to clarify while we're waiting for that email to pop in, if there's an error at all in the information you've input for your registration, you'll get a declined email saying that the information you have doesn't match what we have, or there might be an issue, and it'll give you our contact information. So it'll let you know exactly that you need to contact us, and then when you call in or you email in, we'll figure out what the problem was on our end, and we'll help correct that. So we got our email. So when you get this, it's going to confirm what your information is, that you require both your PIN and your ID to vote. The first link here, you can click on, and you can get your PIN. So it's going to ask you for that ID to confirm again, and then again it's going to have that confirmation text. And here it's going to display your PIN. One thing that we note during the stage, so the PIN isn't actually saved anywhere for security purposes. So you need to make sure that you're actually writing that PIN down or saving it somewhere, because when you click on the click here to vote, it's automatically opening it up into another screen. So you won't have the chance to go back and write that PIN down. So I'm gonna write this down before I forget. And now we're going to click to vote. So it's going to take you back to that same main screen. You can do both from the same window here. And now we're going to go into vote. So when you actually go into vote, it's just going to ask you for that ID and that PIN. You've gone through that full security process, so it knows with these two pieces, it's definitely you. So with this page here, the next thing it's going to bring up when you go to vote, it's going to bring up first and foremost is the oath of qualification. So this is going to be on any application you fill out to add yourself to the voters list. It's a standard qualification saying that you are an eligible voter in the city of Guelph, you're of age 18, and you fit all the qualifications as a Canadian citizen and so on. It's also going to provide an overview of a notice of offense and a notice of corrupt practice as it's taken from the Municipal Elections Act, just being very clear of the penalties associated with any tampering or anything against the electoral process. So to continue here, you actually have to click accept. If you click decline, it'll take you back to the main page and it won't let you proceed without accepting. Okay, so we're ready to vote. This is our mayoral options, so we're going to see who we would like to vote for mayor. And I'm going to hurt Stephen, and I'm going to pick Sidney Crosby. We can choose our councillor here. You can vote, and it specifies at the top here, vote for how many. So I can choose to vote for one if I want, or two. And we can click next contest. And then the third will always be your school board trustee that is listed for you on the ballot. So I'm going to review the ballot. So this review ballot stage is going to be the last step before you cast your ballot. It gives you the opportunity to privately review, make sure all of the selections you've made are correct in what you want. And it gives you the opportunity here to go back and make any corrections before you actually cast the ballot, so you're sure. Here's actually a good example as well. You'll be receiving notes if you've over, undervoted, or have a blank, so it'll indicate you if you have more opportunities if you choose to select more candidates. So we're good to go, and I'm going to cast that. And thank you for voting. It's as easy as that. It's going to confirm that your vote has been cast, and you can vote anytime, day or night, using that method. So we're good to go. And our next slide here, now it's your turn to vote. Using those voter notices that you got when you came in, you can use those on your personal device, or you're welcome to come up here to any of the computers to actually cast your ballot. The link here is what you'll be using tonight, so it's guelph.ca/testmyvote, and that's live and active. If you didn't get a voter registration on your way in, just let Allison know and she'll be happy to get one for you. And if you have any questions throughout the process, just let us know and we're here to help.